Welcome back to Blue Collar Coder, a channel made only better by your contributions in the community tab of this YouTube channel. So go check it out and go have your voice heard about what you want in these videos. So I asked last week what kind of video you wanted, and you said that you wanted one on Recoil, and I'm happy to provide because I think it's a really cool state manager that's ideally suited for the kind of micro-FE federated modules applications that we've been working on here. So what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for a state manager that has values that we can subscribe to, and then when we set, only the subscribers get updated. So what's our competition? Well, let's take useState and useContext as our primary competitors here. So useState is great, but from where you define it in the tree down is going to need to be updated anytime it changes. So if you've got state that you don't know who's going to consume it and where, you're going to need to prop drill that down to wherever the consumers might be. And then anytime those guys update, you're going to need to update the entire tree from where you set it up down. useContext has the same kind of problem. Wherever you define useContext, it's going to need to update from there down when it changes. The only difference between useContext and useState is you don't have to do that prop drilling. Yay, that's much better. But Recoil, I think Recoil is great because you don't have to do either of those things. You're gonna love it. So let's take a look at the example app that we've got today. It's the same app that we had in the original Webpack 5 intro code, but I've upgraded it. I've changed it to Ant D a little bit so it's quicker and updated all the package JSON dependencies, and it's just in general a better system to work with. So we've got a carousel. It's got some fruit in it, and you can select those, and then those update the header and update the bill on the side. And there's also a reset button that resets all the selections and changes the fruit that's on the carousel. So in the Recoil world, we model all the state as atoms. So what's selected and what fruit is available are atoms. So when you click on the carousel, for example, that would then update the selected items atom, which would in turn update the header in the first part of our example. And then later on, as we progress, when we click on, for example, the reset button, it would go and set multiple atoms, including selected items, which would in turn then update the carousel, the header, and the bill. And that's the great thing about this. None of those systems need to know about each other. They just know about their own relationships to the data, and then the data and the Recoil system manages all of those dependencies. So let's go have a look at it in the code. So this is the project we're going to start with. This is actually a port of the original Webpack 5 intro video code that I wrote. I ported it to Ant D because I found that material was just a little bit too slow on the rebuilds. So this is what it currently looks like. There's 3 apps in there. There's a header app or a nav app that has the header and the footer. Then there's the search app, and it shows up on port 3002. It basically just consumes the header and then puts a little additional stuff on there. We're not going to actually use that in this video. And then here's our homepage app. It includes the header from the nav, but it does a little reskinning on it. Then up at the top, it's got these 2 fruit. And then down the bottom, it's got this really cool part of carousel. So what we want to do is turn that into this. So in this one, the header is actually going to now have the cart count, number of items in the cart. There's the same carousel, but it's selectable. And then there's a bill over on the side that shows you all of the items you selected and then the totals. And then you can reset the items and get a new set of items to look at, and it also resets your bill. So the big thing is that there's a lot of state, right? The header has to look at the state to go and see how many items in their cart. The part of carousel has to go and add and remove items from the cart. The bill has to go and sum all that up and create a bill for you. Okay, so let's go and de-git this code. We're going to create a new directory called WP5 Recoil. And yarn at the root level will go and install everything. So let's have a look over package JSON. You can see they got a start in there, so let's fire that up. And that's actually going to run all 3 of those at the same time. Really cute. They're all in live reload mode. Very cool. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go in that package directory, which has a home directory in it for the home app. and we're going to go and add in Recoil. And then we're going to do the same for nav. Then we're going to fire that up. Now over in the home, we're going to start removing some stuff. So we don't need that sidecar. Now those are the ones that have the image on the side. They're up at the top. So let's get rid of those. So now we just have the product carousel, a little divider in there. It's very pretty. So let's go take a look at the product carousel. So here's where we're going to start using some state. So let's go create a state file. We'll call it atoms.js. And the first atom we're going to create is the list of selected items. And so what you do is you call this atom function, and you give that an object. That object has a key, where that's some unique text value, and then a default value. So in this case, it's just going to be an empty array. And then we're going to import use recoil state from Recoil. So instead of use state, you're going to use recoil state. And then we bring in that atom, selected items from atom. So just like use state, we're going to give back an array, and that array is going to have two values in it. The first is the value, and the second is a setter. Then we give it our atom. And now we've got the array as selected and a setter. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to this map that sets up all those product cards. And we're going to set a selected property on there. And we're just going to say, well, if that array includes the product name, then it's selected. And then because we have to be able to toggle that, we're going to create an onClick. And first we're going to go see if it's in there. And if it's in there, then we're going to run a filter on selected and just filter out that product name from the array. And then send back that filtered array to selected set, and that's going to set it, just like it would with regular use state. And then if we do not have it in the array, all we're going to do is just create a new array where you've got the original array plus product name. Okay. Well, it turns out the product card doesn't actually have onClick, so let's fix that. Cool, just pass that through. I'll fire that up again. All right, it's not working. So what's happening? Well, let's see. The component must be used inside of a recoil root component. Aha! Let's go fix that. So let's go over to app and then create a recoil root. Get rid of those and then drop that in there. Nice. And let's run it again. Okay, looking good. Let's try it out. Oh, awesome. Now we can select stuff. That's great. Okay, now we want to share it over with the header, right? We want the header to have a count of items. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to this micro-fe / federated modules dashboard sharing system. This is great for that. So the first thing we need to do is share out those atoms. So let's go and expose that atoms file. And then on the nav side, we've got to bring in home. And then we're going to go into the header, and we're going to say use recoil value this time. Use recoil value is just like use recoil state, except that it only gives you the value back, which is really nice. You only need to read it. That's a great way to do that. So we'll bring in the selected items from atoms. And now we're just going to change this to be a return. And then we're going to go and get that list of selected using the recoil value of that atom. And we're just going to say, well, okay, what's the length of that array? Drop that in there. However many items is in the array is the number of items in your cart. Pretty easy. So let's refresh. Okay, home not found. Okay, that makes sense. I didn't reboot the server, so let's go do that. Okay, let's try again. Home is not defined. Okay, so I think what the problem here is that I'm doing both of these things synchronously, right? I'm importing atoms synchronously using just import, and I'm importing header in the app synchronously, just with an import. Home depends on nav, and nav depends on home. Now you got this kind of chicken and the egg scenario, right? So somebody's got to give, and I'm going to go over to app, and the app is going to give. We're going to lazy load that header. So we're going to say header is a React lazy component. We import that. And then the only extra thing you need to do is wrap that in a suspense. So React.suspense, give it a fallback. I'm just going to give it an empty div. Drop that header in there. Let's see how we go. Okay, try it again. Okay. Oh, interesting. A little bit different this time. So now the problem is that we're not in a recoil root. Well, wait, we are in a recoil root. What the heck? Okay, so the issue here is that we are both working off of different copies of Recoil. The app has its copy of Recoil, and then the federated module, the header or the nav, has its version of Recoil. That's not good. And why is that? Well, the reason is that the app isn't sharing Recoil, and nor is the nav. So they both need to share it so that basically the nav can, when it gets loaded onto the home, can say, oh, I have my Recoil, but that's okay. I'm just going to ignore that, and I'm going to use your Recoil home. So let's go fix that. Got to add in Recoil. Just restart it. Okay, all right, now we're looking good. Now I can go and change items. That's great. Awesome. So the next thing I'm going to experiment with is a selector. And what a selector allows you to do is create essentially a new thing that works like an atom, but is actually an aggregate of other atoms. So let's create a new one called cart count. And it's, again, going to have a key, just like an atom has a key, a selector has a key. But there's a get function that takes a get, an object, and within that is a get. Now I can say get the selected items and return the length. And just to make sure that we can actually see a difference, I'm going to multiply that by 100. But this is a live connection. What this basically says is anytime that selected items changes, then the value of this selector card count also changes. So let's go over the nav. And now this time we're going to bring in card count instead of selected and just use that again as a recoil value, right? It looks just like an atom to us. So we'll get the count out of that. Fire it up again. Ah, very nice. Okay, so now we're using that selector, and it's seamless, right? From the client standpoint, from me consuming those atoms, I can't tell the difference between an atom and a selector, and that's really cool. All right, clearly it's not times 100. So the next thing we want to do is set up that bill. So let's do a little bit of a layout here. I'm going to create a new ant-d layout. A row with a little bit of a gutter there between the items, create some columns. So interestingly, and I don't know why this is, ant-d works on a 24 column layout. Go figure. So I'm going to make the carousel 18 across, and then I'm going to have the bill be 6 across. Basically just 3/4. All right, now that's a little squishy. So I'm going to go and change the width of this thing. All right, that looks nice. I like it. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a component called the bill. Now I could do this in a different app if I wanted to, but I'm just going to put it here. So it's going to bring in the bill, and we're going to bring it in from a thing called read-only atoms. All right, let's just finish setting that up a little bit. So that bill is going to have a table in it with a width of 100%. And now we're going to go create this read-only atoms. And the reason that I'm doing this as read-only is because I want you to think about exposing the data the right way. Like if I give you a list of all of your atoms, if I just give you all my data store, right, then you can go and get and set anything you want. But I can partition that. And I can partition that into different spaces. So I'm going to create a set of read-only atoms, or just in this case, the one. And it's going to bring in the readable atoms, in this case, fruit, which we don't have yet, and selected items. So let's go create that fruit. So because we want to be able to change the list of fruit, we got to go and create it as an atom. So let's just create that fruit atom with a key of fruit, and then the default of the list of fruit. And now we can go create a bill, and that bill will be a selector that depends on both of those things. So we have get. So the first thing we need to do is create a new thing called items, which is all the fruit, but filter down to just the items that are actually selected by the customer. So first time we'll get that fruit, and then we'll filter every one of them and pull out the name, since they contain a name, a price, and an image. And we're going to say, well, if that name appears in the selected items, just use includes again, then we're going to let it in. And we're going to return back that as part of an object. So a selector can return an object. Atoms can be of any type. They're just a single value, but of any type. So that could be an object or an array, single value. Cool. So now we've filtered it down to just those. But in a bill, you're going to have like the price, but you're also going to have the quantity, and then the price times the quantity is the total amount. So let's go and add that. So we're going to map it, and take the original fruit, and then create a new object that has all the original fruit, the image, the name, the price, and then adds a quantity and a total, which is just the fruit price times whatever that value is. And you know what? Hey, let's go with, you're always going to buy 2. It's like Costco. So let's go and say it's got quantity 2 and price times 2. All right. And then the final thing we need to do is come up with a grand total. So let's use reduce on array. And let's take the accumulator and then the total out of the items, and then add the total to the accumulator, and then start the accumulator at 0, and that'll give us our total. Okay, now we have our bill. Let's go back here, and we're just going to create, I don't know, a single row that's got the total in it. Can't just go to the bill like that, so we've got to go and actually use that recoil value to get that bill. Okay, now I have to actually go use this, so let's bring in the bill into app, and then put that in the layout. Okay, starting at 0. Yeah, there we go. I can click on add items. Great. Okay, so let's actually format this out. Create a header, name, price, quantity, total. Awesome. Let's iterate through those items. Create new rows for each one with a key of name, price, quantity, and total. Fantastic. And then we'll go and add a little spacer in there. And you know what? Let's just add some $signs just to make it pretty. Okay, let's fire it up. Oh, that's gorgeous. Look at that. Very nice. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is create that button in there that allows us to mutate the state. We want to see what happens when we change kind of our underlying tenants, in this case, the list of fruit and also the selected items. And to show you that you can change state from anywhere in the DOM, and it changes it in whatever is listening to it. Okay, we're going to use recoil state again in this reset button to go and get the list of fruit. Let's go and bring in those atoms. And then also get the list of the selected items. Now we're basically going to ignore those values, F and SI, but we're just going to use the fruit set and selected set. So let's go create ourselves a button, reset items, and then give ourselves an on-click handler, on reset. And then within on reset, we're going to go in and call these selected set and fruit set. Now for selected set, we're just going to say nothing. And then for fruit set, let's go and grab just a few of these things. Let's see, pair. Yeah, the last 4 is going to do nicely. Drop that in there. Looking good. Okay, let's bring in the reset button into the layout. Check it out. Cool, now we have ourselves a button. Click on that. Now, let's see. The bill changes, but the carousel does not. So why is that? Let's go over to here. Well, the carousel just depends on fruit directly from /fruit, the original fruit array. So it's not an actual recoil value. So we use that recoil value for that fruit. Now we're bringing in the atom. Create a new value called fruit list using the recoil value. And then use that as the basis for the map. And here we go. So let's pick a few items. Looks good. Now let's reset items. Ah, nice. Okay. Looking really good. All right, well, I hope you're as excited about Recoil as I am. I think it's a great solve in the micro-FE and federated module space because it really defines a loosely coupled state manager for me. The idea that you can hit that reset button And then the header updates and the product carousel updates and the bill updates. And none of these components need to know about the other. They just work through the contract of the data. I think it's really cool. And the way that Atom and Selector, you can't tell the difference between the two. I love that. It's awesome. Thank you so much for bringing Recoil to my attention through the community tab. And thank you so much for all of the input that you give in the community tab. I can't wait to see you guys on streaming. I think it's going to be really fun. So I'll let you know when that's out and we can do some streams together and do some research. And I think that's going to be great. In the meantime, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you really like these videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button, click on that bell, and you'll be notified anytime that a new video is out. And hey, if you want to tell the world about these videos on Twitter or Facebook or Reddit, whatever you want, just go for it. And in the meantime, of course, be happy, be healthy, and be safe.